Good morning. How are we all doing this fine day? Still buzzing from last night, if I'm being completely honest. Our Predictions 2023 show last night. Those evening shows, particularly those that go kind of off script and require me to think and respond, they just keep playing on in my head hours after we've stopped talking. All that being said, it was great fun and has, let me see if I can find it, as Gary Muirhead has just said. Where is he? There he is. Good morning, Mark. Good morning, gang. Loved the show last night. Fantastic chat as always. Really was. Really insightful. And thanks very much indeed, Gary, for your couple of suggestions of things that might just happen over the coming 11 and a half months. I'll tell you more about that at some point in the future. In fact, I'll tell you about it now. If you missed the show, we basically drew up a list of what my predictions for the coming 11 and a half months and those of the audience, including Gary Muirhead. We're going to be checking back on those predictions in a follow-up show on the 13th of December of this year, just to see how accurate our predictions prove to be. I don't hold out very much hope for some of mine, but we shall see. Stranger things have happened. Also going to say a very quick good morning to my partners in crime, Messrs. Drew and Haddock, who have just pitched up in the chat. Thanks very much indeed for being here, guys. And welcome aboard this funny old train that we call the Breakfast Show. Right, I think we need to roll an intro. Let's get one of these up. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I'm your host, Mark Anthony. It is Wednesday the 18th. Is it the 18th? That doesn't feel right. It's Wednesday No. Let me try that again. Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, the 19th of January. And as that remarkably persistent guy just said, welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Volvo is set to unleash a new wheel loader at ConExpo 2023. We've got some exclusive footage of that. When you grow tired of tracks, and it's not tracks as in tracked undercarriages, you'll see more about that in just a second. We'll be looking at that other backhoe loader manufacturer, plus surface mining made easy. I'm going to get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's see who among the rich and the shameless will be celebrating a birthday on this day of days. Happy birthday! And it's many happy returns to the master of Gothic horror, author Edgar Allan Poe, and to the first man to swim the English Channel, Matthew Webb. What possessed him to do that? The Lord alone knows. Happy birthday also to half of the Everly brothers, Phil Everly, to singer Janis Joplin, to the ageless Dolly Parton. I say she's ageless. Parts of her ageless. Tennis star Stefan Edberg, and to golfer Tommy Fleetwood. Many happy returns to them, one and all. Yesterday afternoon, those fine folks at Volvo Construction Equipment hosted a virtual press conference to give us, journalists and hacks, sorry band that we are, a sneak preview of what the company has in store for us at ConExpo 2023. Now, I took the liberty of recording the whole thing. Not entirely sure I was supposed to, but I did. On tomorrow's show, I'm going to show you a new electric compactor that Volvo is adding to its product line. And on Monday, I'm going to give you a tour of the Volvo stand, even though, obviously, it's 2 months away. The stand doesn't exist as yet, but I'll give you a tour anyway. But first, the company is planning to unveil a new wheel loader. Now, what I'm about to play you is basically the recording of a live stream. So the audio isn't quite up to our usual high standards, but I think you'll agree it's worth it. Check this out.
Hello, my name is Eric Yeomans. I'm the product manager for wheel loaders for North America. I'm here at our Shippensburg customer center. So the product we want to talk about today is the new L350H. The L350H has been in production for many, many years. The big difference between this 350 compared to the existing one is the new drivetrain, new transmission, new axles. The new features in those axles, a dry parking brake and the RBB reverse by braking, OptiShift, they're dramatically going to improve your fuel efficiency. What is the top features of the 350H? We've improved the hydraulic system. We have new hydraulic cylinders, and that's improving our cycle time dramatically. And as everybody knows, if you can reduce your cycle time, you're going to improve your productivity. The lifetime warranty that we have on the front frame, the rear frame, the articulation and boom, that is unique to Volvo. Some of the other features that we have now also is that we have 1,000-hour service intervals on the engine, and that is going to also improve your TCO, your total cost of ownership. And then we also have a fuel efficiency guarantee where we're guaranteeing your machine will not use more fuel than that's identified in the fuel efficiency guarantee. Many of you are aware that we have load assist or co-pilot in every wheel loader, and some of the new features that are coming now is a feature called Connected Map, and that basically gives you as a customer the ability to track and monitor your production basically sitting in the office, because all the data can be sent directly from the machine to the portal, so you can track your fuel efficiency, productivity, where the machine's located, everything. You can track that now from the machine live.
Yeah, as I said, we've got more coming from the Volvo stable over the next few days. Yes, I knew there was something else. I just heard this morning that the Volvo merch store is currently offering a 20% discount as part of its New Year sale. So if you've always wanted to own a Volvo jacket, a t-shirt, or a backpack, I used to have one of those. I gave it away. If you've always wanted to own one, then now is the time. I'll add a link to the merch store in just a second while you're watching whatever comes up next. And just on the subject of ConExpo, it was announced this morning that JCB is returning to the show to showcase its hydrogen combustion technology. It'll be great to have them back on the show, or at the show, should I say. So, moving on. If I said to you the words backhoe loader, which manufacturer springs immediately to mind? JCB? If you're a Brit, that's probably the case. Caterpillar? Case? All good answers and all perfectly correct. But what about Komatsu? For some reason, I've got a mental blind spot for Komatsu backhoe loaders. I love their excavators, large and small. Love their dozers, their wheel loaders, their dump trucks. But somehow I always manage to forget that they also produce a damn fine backhoe loader too. It's a problem with me, not with them. It is said that necessity is the mother of invention. When us humans encounter a problem, we have an incredible knack of designing our way around it. So when train tracks required removal at Zurich station over in Switzerland, it was clearly not a job for a bucket or a grab or even a shear. But the local demolition company involved found a way around anyway. Well, the safety police are out in force this morning. Morning, Peter. Not a lot of health and safety awareness on that track pulling video, Mark. No glasses worn. They're tucked in his back belt and super close to the bucket. Quite right. And if somebody had asked me about the Swiss, you'd have thought they would have been hyper conscious of all things safety-wise. Ken Hatcher. Ken, you and I need to have a chat. I think what we need to do is I'll have a button on my Stream Deck here, and every time there is a sprocket to the front, I'll press the button and save you the trouble of having to actually type it. As Gary Muir said, sprockets, Ken, and it hasn't pleased Ken one iota. All that being said, the attachment itself simple, effective. So in line with my question of the day, have you ever seen, used, or even invented an attachment for a special application like that? Obviously, that's almost a one-off, an application like that. Have you ever used, seen, or invented an attachment for a similar sort of application? I'd love to hear about it. And while you're doing that, I'll do this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So, surface mining. It's a subject about which I know precisely nothing, aside from the fact that it sounds a lot less unpleasant than underground mining. So how does surface mining work? What can you mine on the surface? No idea. What I do know is it involves some very impressive and truly unique equipment. It's one impressive piece of kit, I think you'll agree. Probably lacking in the old dust suppression department, but it does appear to be operating just on the outskirts of the middle of nowhere. Before we conclude things, I just want to share this with you. There we are. Out today from Construction Inquirer. Construction to employ 2.67 million people by the year 2027. Save you doing the maths, that's 4 years' time. The projections, let's have a look. The CITB's annual Construction Skills Network CSN report shows that 44,980 new workers will be a year will be needed to meet UK construction demand between now and 2027 as the industry recovers from recession this year. I'm pleased to report that they are looking to recover from recession. We know the next 18 months won't be easy. But says Tim Balcon, Chief Executive of the CITB, but I remain inspired by the construction industry's resilience shown in the pandemic and throughout 2022. In short, it makes it clear that In short, it makes clear that the need to recruit and retain talent in the sector has never been greater. All of which sounds absolutely marvellous. I could have done a better job of that, I think. Not entirely sure why that's not sharing properly. We have a skill. we have a skills shortage right now, and we are talking positively about adding roughly 50,000 people to the workforce every year for the next 4 years. How are we going to do that? Let's have a chat about that afterwards. Meantime, this.
Sorry to interrupt the guy with the funny glasses, but if you're enjoying this video, please hit the like button as it helps our channel. Or, better still, share this video with a friend or a colleague. Thank you. Right, back to Beardy.
Right, that pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into the chat to see what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. Have a great day, and thanks for watching. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I'll see you on the other side of this, what is now known as the crack. And we will be talking skill shortages. We'll be talking JCB at ConExpo. We'll be talking last night's Predictions 2023 show, and anything else you care. The location of sprockets, anything else you care to throw in the chat. But until then, this. than I am today. Gonna very quickly. I'm going to go through the chat in just a second, but one of the predictions that came from our friend Gary Muirhead for 2023 last night was that Lord Bamford would step down as chief exec of JCB and possibly hand the reins to his son George or somebody else. The announcement that JCB is going to be at ConExpo this morning was accompanied by a photograph of none other than Lord Bamford, Anthony Bamford. So, what do you make of that? Is that Lord Bamford still very much hands-on, still determined to be part of the everyday running of the business? Or could that be read as part of his farewell tour? Be interested to hear what you have to say. Let's have a look. I want to throw this one up very quickly because it does relate to the story we just brought you. CITB statistical forecasts on anything apart appertaining to the sectors historically are I'm going to try that again. CITB's statistical forecasts on anything appertaining to the sector historically are notoriously unreliable. Huge pinch of salt. I take a huge pinch of salt with a lot of what I put on here. But what I find remarkable about the announcement, and I tell you what, let me see if I can get it up on the screen properly this time. And I'm going to go over to see if I can get that a bit further up. There we go. That should do it. There you go. You can actually see it a bit more clearly now. What I find remarkable about that is that we are in the midst of a skill shortage. There is no mention of that. There is no mention of the shortfall as it stands at the moment. This is, we need to attract another 50-odd thousand or 44,980 people every year for the next 4 years. And it's almost like the CITB saying, right, that's what we need, over to you. Make that happen. Wave your magic wand, industry, and we're not doing it at the moment. What on earth makes us think we're going to be able to do it over the next 4 years? On a similar line, I was having a moment on LinkedIn over the weekend about the ever-increasing skill shortage and the reform that's needed in the education system. Yeah. I was thinking about this the other night. I'm going to take this off the screen. I was thinking about this the other night. You know, every once in a while, Australia puts out a bulletin to overseas nations and says we are lacking in plumbers or hairdressers or nurses, for example. They, as a nation, they've recognised the shortfall and they have therefore been forced to take their message overseas in order to fill those roles that they need filling. Would it not be beyond the wit of man for us to do that internally? For government or the construction industry or the Construction Leadership Council, who surely have plenty of time on their hands, to go out to the nation's educators and say, as we've just seen there, we need another 50-odd thousand construction workers for the next 4 years. Each year for the next 4 years. You could be looking at guaranteed employment for the next 30 or 40 years for anyone that takes that role. So please make that happen. Sit down with them and let's make that happen. And let's make construction and demolition more attractive. Let's make sure that vocational skills are to the fore in certain schools, colleges, universities. Why are we not doing that? And something like that Construction Industry Training Board press release. I got a copy this morning. Construction Inquirer got a copy this morning. I would imagine that the Construction Index got a copy. Quite possibly Peter Haddock, Nick Drew got a copy. Building Magazine would have got a copy. Let's talking to ourselves. It's talking to ourselves. It just makes no sense whatsoever. Why are we not going out to the field of education and telling people we have a shortfall? Not only do we have a shortfall, but we are looking for young, smart, dynamic young people. If we can get those dynamic young people, they will earn this to begin with, that next stage, that the next stage, almost guaranteed income for the next 30, 40, possibly even 50 years should they decide to stick around. Clear progression through the ranks within the industry. Lots of money to be made, lots of benefits to be had, transferable skills that you could take to pretty much any country in the world and earn your fortune. And yet we are talking amongst ourselves like we so often do. Back to the beginning of the chat. Ken Hatter is feeling ill today. Sorry to hear that, Ken. Hope it's nothing too serious. Didn't stop you spotting the sprocket location, did it? My wife, who, as I mentioned on the show last night, my wife's actually staying with my sister. No, she's not. She's staying with my daughter. Where did that come from? Staying with my daughter because my daughter's at a funeral today, and she's woken up with a sore throat and feeling slightly the worse for wear. I wonder if the flu bug finally caught up with her, possibly. Gary Muirhead, good morning, Gary. I've already mentioned this. Loved the show last night. Fantastic chat as always. It's the bit of this job that I enjoy the most. Obviously, large parts of last night's show were scripted, but it was the bits where you go off script and just make stuff up as you go along and really respond to what was being said. Things like, I requested predictions from the audience, and I was thinking we might get, Doosan or Devilon, as they're about to be known, about to launch a new 8-tonner or something like that. And no, get first off the mark was Gary Muirhead saying that he reckons that Lord Bamford will step down, the CEO at JCB. And the more I think about it, as I said on the show last time I saw him, he was in fine fettle. I mean, he's as fit as a flea, and he's very, very keen, very, very hands-on. But so saying that, he's got more than a few quid in his back pocket. He has obviously got his duties as a lord, as a member of the House of Lords, and he's also got a pair of sons, Joe and George, who are variously involved in the business. Does he really want to do that until he's really seriously old and can't do it anymore? Or is he going to take an early retirement? It's not even early because he's in his 70s. Could he just step down? Interesting thought. Thanks very much indeed for that, Gary. Mick Norton is in the house. Morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Mark Whiting's here as well. Morning, Mark. Thank you very much for being here. And then it's weird how this... I probably need to check this actually, because this might not be a coincidence. Messrs. Drew and Haddock were literally seconds apart in saying good morning. There's Nick, there's Peter. You're not together, chaps, are you? I don't know if you are, but if you are, good morning to both. I saw on LinkedIn Peter Haddock has trudged like an Eskimo through the snow, through the wilds, the Arctic terrain of Stafford this morning to get to his fancy new office. Glad you made it, Peter. Also glad to see you still walking as well. Temptation when it's bad weather is to jump in the car. Glad to see you still sticking with the exercise. Wow, 1,000 hours servicing, that's like 50,000 miles, says Ken Hatcher. That is the Volvo L350H. Very smart it looks too. Just a very quick point on all things Volvo. I mentioned in the show earlier, there's 2 more videos to come. The first is going to be on this DD25 electric compactor. That'll be tomorrow. And then on Monday, we've got a virtual stand walk around. And one of the things that the virtual stand walk around shows is there is something that is lurking under wraps. There is something they didn't want to show us yesterday. I say they didn't want to show us. They showed it to us so that we would be intrigued. Let's make no bones about that. But there is something new coming. It looks, size-wise, it looks excavator shaped, but they didn't tell us what it was. So yes, I will be, there is a press event with Volvo at ConExpo, I think on the Tuesday morning of the event, which is the opening day of the show. So I will be there present and correct, and hopefully at that point I'll be able to tell you exactly what it is that they're going to be showing off. In addition to that, they're also going to have what I believe to be is the biggest electric excavator, certainly in their range, but possibly in the world as well. And I'm struggling to remember what it is. I think, is it a 230? Can't remember what the machine is called, but I know they've sold one up to Norway or Denmark, one of the Scandinavian countries, and that's going to be on display as well. So the Volvo stand is going to be a real key destination for me while I'm over in Las Vegas, and I can't wait, particularly when I saw how frosty it was this morning. Weather's still better than where Peter Haddock is, but the weather is cold. I've had the heater on this morning, not just the central heating in the house, but the heater under my desk to warm the cockles before I come on these shows. So yeah, really looking forward to getting over to Las Vegas. Dan Cullen's in the house. Morning, Dan. I bet you're still busy with people looking for jobs. I'm sure you are. Mick Norton says, total cost of ownership, TCO. I would like to see a TCO for a Volvo electric 360. Well, as I said, there is going to be one there. There's going to be one in Las Vegas. Hopefully I can pigeonhole one of their representatives and have a word. One thing I will say about Volvo, and this isn't unique to Volvo, it is, you tend to find it across all the major manufacturers, particularly I think Komatsu, Liebherr, Caterpillar, and JCB. When you get together with an actual product specialist, it's astonishing. It's astonishing how much they know about the product. It is, you can tell they are completely invested in it. So I'm hoping to get somebody on that Volvo Electric 360 and have a good old chat, a good old chinwag, and really try and get to the bottom of charge times, run times, total cost of ownership, and various other bits and pieces. So watch this space, Mick. I'll see what I can do for you. The old Komatsu used to overheat years ago, mine. That's the Volvo, the Komatsu backhoe loader. Peter Haddock has actually said, never seen one of the Komatsu backhoes in the UK. They are about. They're not quite hen's teeth or rocking horse poop, but they are about. But as I say, and maybe that's it. Maybe it is because they have a certain rarity value to them. When I think backhoes, I immediately think JCB, I immediately think Case and Caterpillar, and completely overlook the fact that Komatsu make a perfectly fine, very fine backhoe loader. Hydramec make a very, very good backhoe loader. And yeah, I guess it's being a Brit and having spent the last 33 years going to and from Uttoxeter, I think my brain is basically washed, and there is a yellow signal goes to my core. Somebody says backhoe, I think JCB. Jim Turner's in the house. Morning, Jim. Thank you very much indeed for being here. But it's nice and chilly up where you are. We're going back to the Zurich station where the railways or the rail line was being pulled up. Ken Hatcher, not a happy bunny. He's in reverse, he says. Sprocket to the rear. Yes, I can't argue. All I would say is, bearing in mind the way he was operating, that toing and froing, is he always in reverse, even when he's backing up? Listen, it's not my game. It's not my area of expertise. He says he has no idea. Peter, with a more valid point, I think, not a lot of health and safety awareness, which, as I say, I find that very surprising. I tend to think of Switzerland and certainly the Scandinavian countries as being hyper safety conscious. And yeah, as you say, short sleeves and no goggles, no gloves that I spotted either. Yeah, very surprising. There we go. I was looking for specialist attachments. Question of the day. Jim Turner says, we converted a tractor muck fork for our mini digger in face shovel way. We also have a bale spike for it, which allows us to stack bales where a loader tractor can't get to. I think that's one of the things that you certainly see over in the farming community. I realise that in modern farming, we have at our disposal an enormous array of attachments. But I do think there are still farmers out there who like a bit of metal bashing themselves, encounter a problem or a challenge, and are quite happy to go to the shed and make something to fix that issue or that challenge. As Jim Turner has just said there. I'm not even sure what to say about that. And it just beggars belief. The CITB acts, perhaps, given that it is a bit of a quango, it acts a lot like the government. Never mind what's going on, here's the thing we want to talk about. So never mind the fact that the CITB has, what's the technical term, spunked millions over the years, particularly with the selling off of the crown jewels, or the partial selling off of the crown jewels a few years ago, catastrophic switches in card schemes, and Lord alone knows what else. And yet, put all of that aside, and we have a skill shortage that has never ever been fully addressed. And now, as if nothing is going on in the background, along they come saying we need about another 45,000 people a year. Crack on. Gee. Makes me as angry as poorly located sprockets make Ken. There we are. I was having a moan on LinkedIn over the weekend about the ever-increasing skill shortage and the reform that needed in the education system. Yeah. Why? I'm going to quickly throw this up, and then I'll go off on one of my weird rambles. That's from Peter Haddock. He didn't get a copy of the CITB press release. He is not on their radar. Josh Hallam has joined us. Morning, Josh. Thank you very much indeed for being here. I'm going to give you some welcome confetti because I don't believe you've been here before. Everybody that joins us for the first time gets a bit of that. That's for you, Josh. Thank you very much indeed for being here. So here's the thing, right? And this is my brain going off on a tangent. I've never worked in the restaurant industry, but I used to work with the TV playing in the background, and I always had cooking shows on in the background. So having listened and sometimes watched Messrs. Ramsay, Gordon, Bourdain, Lawson, particularly Nigella Lawson, but having watched all of those, I found it fascinating the way in which demand is managed within the industry. For example, before a restaurant or a hotel, let's stick with restaurant, before a restaurant opens, the waiting staff are advised to push certain things. They're advised to push certain dishes, because the produce that goes into that dish needs to be used and gone before it's wasted, but also to help manage the flow through the kitchen. There are certain dishes, let's say for example, how time consuming is it to cook a steak and chips from scratch? You've got to cook the steak to perfection. You've got to make sure that the chips are crispy on the outside, fluffy in the middle, and you're talking about a process of 10-12 minutes, give or take, I guess. Compare that to assembling a Caesar salad. Some leaves, some sauce, some croutons, bosh, done. Right? So that's the way that I could run a restaurant based on all this, couldn't I? So that is the way that restaurants run their business. Okay? Think about applying that to our schools. We want engineers, we want scientists, we want doctors, we want nurses, we want whatever it might be. But let's push that thing that we need to fulfill. Let's treat construction and construction jobs like some lettuce that goes out of date tomorrow. Let's push it. Let's be in schools pushing, hand-picking people that we believe would bring value and dynamism and intelligence and forward-thinkingness to this industry, rather than just waiting at the school gates for effectively the dregs, those that couldn't be bothered to be there, and if they were there they didn't really take part. Rather than doing that, let's be in schools, actually drawing them in. I've just spotted, now I'm sure this isn't a coincidence, I've already said good morning to Josh Hallam, and lo and behold, there's a Danny Hallam. That can't be a coincidence, can it? Surely not. Danny, you get your welcome confetti as well. Are you two related? Surely you have to be related. So yes, I think the industry needs to go out to the education system and say, we have a desperate need, and a need that is becoming more desperate by the minute. What can we do? Do we need? We've mentioned this in the past, and I'm just going to quickly throw this up. Peter and Nick are not together. Well, not in the biblical sense, anyway. We've mentioned on this show before the issue of mentorship, the fact that we have people in our midst that have gone through pretty much every experience that the construction and demolition industry has to offer, and then they reach a certain age and we kiss them on both cheeks and send them on their merry way. Is there not scope for industry to get some of those guys and girls together to form a collective that is then sent out to schools, colleges and universities as our forward party to sit down with young people and say, I started out with so-and-so qualifications or 0 qualifications, and by the time I left my last job I was driving a Range Rover and I was earning 150 grand a year. Is there not some scope for that? Love to hear your thoughts. Mick Norton has topped up on Gary Muirhead. He's doubled down actually on Gary Muirhead's prediction from last night. Lord Bamford will retire later this year and assume chairmanship of the Conservative Party in the run-up to the next election. Obviously, Lord Bamford is very publicly a keen supporter of the Conservative Party. He is in the House of Lords. He has probably a bigger public profile than pretty much anyone outside of Rishi Sunak in the nation, and possibly beyond as well. You know something that we don't, Mick? Interesting. Steve Williamson, better late than never. My thoughts entirely. We do not penalise for punctuality here, Steve. Ours is a broad church, and even those that can't get out of bed in the morning are welcome, one and all. Jim Turner, all the backhoe loader manufacturers have their plus points, but out of all the types I've been on, I'd say JCB is best overall. I'm kind of inclined to agree with that, Jim. But again, I do wonder if my vision is clouded by having been exposed to the JCB backhoe loader rather more than I have. But there are, as you say, there are fantastic aspects. Very impressed with the case backhoe loader. Last time I got behind the controls of one of those. Love to have a pop in their electric backhoe loader. Be interested to see what that one is all about. Now, this is what live shows are all about. This breaking news. Stand by your beds, people. This is hot off the press. Nick Drew has booked a flight to ConExpo. Nick Drew is coming to Las Vegas. Nick, I couldn't be happier if, well, I probably could, if West Ham won the Premiership and Keira Knightley knocked on the front door, I'd probably be a bit happier then, but the band is back together. It'll be fantastic. Obviously, we're going to be staying in different places this time, unlike Balmer when we were all together. But Nick Drew, you are going back where you belong, sir. At the very heart and the cutting edge of the industry. Delighted for you, Nick. I can't wait to see you over there. I hope to see you before that, but if I don't, I'm certainly going to be spending some time with you over in Las Vegas. Let me know where you're staying. Let me know what flight you're on, and see if we can book that up. But awesome news, and as Peter said, super excited. Yeah, it is. It is like getting the band back together. Let's see. Steve Williamson. Up in Aberdeen, the company I work for have started doing more with apprenticeships. They were told they can't do classes up here due to not enough candidates. So WMD said, if we can fill the classes this year, will you do it? They said yes, and now they've filled the class and given the young ones an apprenticeship up in the north of Scotland. So it wasn't available, but it is now. Yeah, absolutely right. Just quickly, Mick Norton showing his age. Bring back the Whitlock backhoe. Sad to say, I actually remember seeing a few of those around the place. We've had exactly the same situation as this, Steve, in the field of demolition. There wasn't demand for an apprenticeship to bring people into demolition, but through the work specifically of a couple of guys at Erith and Keltray. I'm trying to remember, there's a guy called Aaron, I can't remember his surname off the top of my head, he's no longer with Keltray, but between him and Stuart Ackleton at Erith, they came up with an apprenticeship and started it at a college down in Essex. And, you know, they had to fight like tooth and nail in order to get the thing off the ground. And then when they got it off the ground, they were inundated. And my understanding is virtually all of the apprentices that went through that have then gone on to become an integral part of the industry. It is just a matter of doing it and having the foresight and the will and the determination to do it. I think companies need to work more with colleges. I totally agree. And I think that's particularly the case at a certain level of the industry. And I'm not letting Kia and Morgan Sindall and Balfour Beatty and Lango Rook off the hook here. But all of those work on a national basis. Some of them work on an international basis. I think where we could have real benefit is the next tier down. So not the tier ones, but the tier 1.5 or the tier 2s. Because a lot of those companies are working on a very local or regional basis. They know the local community, they know the local people, they know the local schools, colleges and universities. We need to forge stronger links between companies, construction and demolition companies, and their nearest education facility. Whether that's going into schools, whether that's inviting people to site, or a combination thereof, but draw those links. Get young people excited about what is an exciting industry. I'm not saying that this is the benchmark, but think about this for a second. I managed to produce a daily live show on this industry every single weekday and have done for nearly 3 years now. That is how quickly the industry is moving. You've seen today things like the new L350H from Volvo. Fantastic new machine, newly developed. You've seen, despite our safety concerns, we've seen the ingenuity that went into that Swiss contract over in Zurich with the pulling up of the tracks. We've got JCB gunning away, possibly even overtaking some in the automotive industry with the development of a hydrogen combustion engine. There is so much happening, and yet and this is where I'm guilty, obviously my core audience is people that are already converted to the church of demolition and construction. But there is so much going on. It is such a fast-paced and such an exciting industry. We just need the means with which to communicate that. And rather than going to schools and preaching about health and safety and the need for PPE, show them an L350H, show them DSM's super high reach demolition machine, show them JCB's hydrogen backhoe loader, show them the OLED display that Bobcat came up with at Balmer. There's so much to get young people excited, and yet, as I say, we are talking amongst ourselves, and it's something that we as an industry, and I think also as individual trade associations, I think we are very, very adept at talking to ourselves, and yet we're converted. You know, we are already part of this broad church that we have. We need to be talking to those outside rather than just talking amongst ourselves. Steve Williamson, the company I work for, now got a simulator. Great to hear, for giving apprentices a feel of operating machines, giving them the basic intro, and bringing the sim to college and school days. Awesome. We've got exactly the same sort of thing going on. AR Demolition up in East Midlands or thereabouts. They have a simulator as well. They bought the NFDC's old simulator for precisely that kind of thing. I was at an open day at AR Demolition probably 5 years ago now, when they first got that simulator, and they'd invited a bunch of people from the local college, and male and female, and this is where we need to pick up on these messages and these signals, right? So there was a marquee with a podium and a bunch of seats, dignitaries, directors of AR Demolition, local dignitaries as well, and they all stood up and they did their speeches. And you could look around the audience, and those that work for AR Demolition were very upbeat and excited, and the local dignitaries, they were all upbeat and very excited. And there was a little gaggle of school and college leavers who were sat there. I think they'd been forced to wear a tie, probably against their better judgment. They'd been forced to wear a tie, and they looked out of place, disinterested, like they would rather be anywhere else but there. And then AR Demolition said, come and have a look at the simulator. And then the roles reversed. All those dignitaries and senior directors looked bored out of their minds, because they live and breathe this sort of thing anyway. And the college and the school kids loved it. Absolutely, literally queuing up to have a go on an excavator simulator. That's what a simulator can do. I have my reservations about simulators. Let me just see, before I talk about that, let's have a look. Jim Turner, you're reading my mind, Mark. That's how we're going to introduce the next generation of workers. You see, were I Lord High Chancellor of Construction, all of this would be fixed in a day, because I have the solution. Do I? I don't know. I'm in agreement with Jim, but is everybody else in agreement? Possibly not. Yes, going back to the simulator, I do have my issues, and I think it's very important to understand the actual role of a simulator. And I think Steve has hit the nail on the head. The company he's working for is using it to get them excited about it, but giving them a basic introduction. That is fantastic. I think as a precursor to going out on site, I think good, maybe not as good as what I've just mentioned, but good. But here's where I have an issue. The issue with simulators is that if you do something wrong, despite the fact that they are very realistic, with vibrations through the controls and visuals and all that, it's still but a game where you can press restart and start again. You can't do that in the real world. And I think where I have a concern is where we seem to be pushing more towards simulation and less towards actual hands-on. And I realise a lot of that is a reaction. It's a reaction to the fact that a lot of major contractors, the tier ones, aren't happy for training to take place on their site, despite the fact that they're asking for increasingly stringent legislation and regulation of who can and cannot work, so competence cards and courses and all that kind of thing. But I think it is vitally important that there is a distinction between simulation and the real thing. I would hate to have an industry of workers that have basically learned their craft in nothing but a simulator. I think that's the beginning of the slippery slope. Steve Williamson again, showing young ones the machine operator life is great. They love it, but working on the ground outside in rain and snow is definitely harder to get them excited about. That's what there's a big shortage of up here, is ground workers. So here's the thing. I mentioned this a wee while ago, and I'm going to mention it again. If I go over onto LinkedIn, it's full of besuited and tie-wearing individuals talking about how they are fixing the industry, how they are addressing the mental health issue within the industry, how they're addressing the gender imbalance, how they are backing apprenticeships, and how they are attracting staff to the industry. Despite all of those things, all of those issues remain. So now look at Steve Williamson, right? Steve Williamson is, I hope you don't mind me saying this, Steve. Steve's a digger driver. And I don't say that to dismiss it, but he is a digger driver. He's up in Scotland at the moment, behind the wheels of, or behind the levers rather, of a digger. In October last year, Steve Williamson was still behind the levers, but he was doing so in Munich at the Baumer exhibition, in glorious sunshine, with a crowd around him like he was some kind of pop star. He was hanging out with his mate, attracting a crowd, and basically playing to that crowd. In less than 8 weeks' time, Steve Williamson, you know, that guy that just drives a digger, will be performing, and I mean performing, he will be performing live in Las Vegas. He and his sidekick, Ed Butler, are going to Las Vegas to be part of the ConExpo show as part of the Kinsoffer stand, and he will be demonstrating the Kinsoffer product range, playing to the crowd, performing in Las Vegas. He's a digger driver. Who's telling young people that? Who is telling young people that if you work hard and you know, work hard, play hard as you see fit, you too could follow somebody like Steve or Ed and go and do their thing? I'll go further, given the fact that we've already mentioned him. Nick Drew. Let's gloss over his ice hockey history, but Nick Drew, digger driver. Nick Drew, digger driver, who now is part of probably the biggest construction equipment magazine in the country. He too is going to be performing in Las Vegas. He too was at Bauma. And Nick Drew can go to pretty much any construction equipment exhibition in the world, the US, Germany, Finland, and I know because I've seen it, he is not just recognised, he is an industry celebrity. Nick Drew, digger driver, international celebrity. Who is telling young people that? We seem to have got ourselves into a mindset of, if we go to a school and say, oh, driving an excavator is just like driving a PlayStation, they'll be queuing up at our door. They're not. They never have. Show them the benefits, not how easy it is to get a job in it. Show them the benefits. Show them Steve Williamson. Show them Nick Drew. Show them Katie Kelleher over on the crane side. Katie Kelleher, right? Katie's, I don't know, late 20s, I suppose. Talks like a cockney, bit rough around the edges. Lovely girl. I love Katie to death, but lovely girl. She is going to be part of the influencer panel at ConExpo. She is, publicly speaking, a girl from, I'm guessing, the East End of London, is flying transatlantic, paid, to go and stand in front of an audience of Americans to talk about her career path that was desperate to get out of job, took on an apprenticeship as a crane operator, but also quite fancied herself as a bit of a social media influencer, and she is now rubbing shoulders on stage in Las Vegas with some of the biggest influencers that this industry has ever produced. Why are we not talking about Katie? Why are we not talking about Steve and Nick and all the others? Connor the digger driver. As I said at the time that I interviewed him, Ben the operator, not a huge following at the moment. He will have. Trust me, he will have. And when he does have, I guarantee there will be people knocking on his door offering him international travel, free products, paid sponsorships, and Lord alone knows what else. The world is your lobster, as they used to say in Only Fools and Horses. But we're not communicating it. Mick Norton, when you have, say, a piling rig asset 2 million euros, the opportunity to have a training needs supplemented by a simulator couldn't be better for all. No, I totally agree. And I would say exactly the same as you said about a piling rig. I would say exactly the same about a high reach excavator. You're not going to take somebody straight out of school, throw them the keys of a £1 million high reach excavator. If they've been through a simulator to get the feel and the understanding of the controls, and then possibly put them on something a bit smaller, something under 30 meters maybe, and then you build up. So as a grounding, I totally 100% agree about a simulator. But I will also draw the comparison. Piling rigs fall over. High reach excavators fall over. If you do that on a simulator, press restart. If you do that in real life, you're either dead or seriously injured, and you may well have killed somebody else as well. That's where I draw the line. Steve Williamson, well said. Thank you very much indeed, Steve. See, the industry is missing a point. As I've said before, the day they make me the king of all things demolition and construction, the industry's woes will vanish. They probably wouldn't. I just feather my own nest and sit back and watch the chaos unfold. But there, and as I say, it doesn't need to be on a grand scale. You know, and I realise you're working up in Scotland at the moment, Steve. But you know, if you were invited along to a local school or a local college and told them your tale, you know, I am a digger driver, but I perform in front of huge crowds in Las Vegas. Listen, I know what you do. I've seen other people do it. I would sit there and listen to that for half an hour without a moment's hesitation. I really would. And I'm sure there are young people out there. And you, before I sign off, because we've already topped the hour mark, you're playing the averages when it comes to recruitment. If you went and sat in front of an audience, or let's say you did a class of school children of 30, you're not going to convert them all. You will have some that are already determined to be footballers or YouTubers or Instagram influencers or whatever the current trend is. You'll have a lot of those. But if out of that 30 you could turn one or two onto demolition or construction, you will have done more for this industry than the besuited people in the ivory towers of the industry have done in years. Jim Turner, there should be nothing wrong with letting kids have a go in a 13-ton 360 with kill switch and extended footplate for an instructor to stand on. Yeah, funnily enough, Dan Cullen actually suggested the idea of putting an additional, like a jockey seat in certain machines. Obviously you can't do that in a skid steer or a mini excavator, because where are you going to put it? But yeah, why not? Why not have that? Why not? I just think it's a fantastic idea. It really is a fantastic idea. And just thinking about, I mean, you said extended footplate there. Are we making maximum use of, I keep banging the drum about young people. What about disabled young people? There are systems out there now. I'll say Case as a prime example. Case developed a lift to get a person in a wheelchair into a backhoe loader and back out again. Obviously, you have challenges with bathroom breaks and all that, and I'm aware of that, and I realise that some machines require pedals, and if you can't use your legs, you've got an issue. I'm well aware of all that. But rather than consigning those that are less abled to the scrap heap, what's wrong? Why are we not? Why are we not reaching out to those guys as well, guys and girls as well? Jim Turner. Out in the open on flat ground is as safe as houses. Totally agree. Mate, and when you think, so here's a thought. When you think about places like Birch and Newton, these CITBs, they're jewelling the CITB crown even though they tried to sell it off. The thing is vast. There's acres of it. Now, I realise that a lot of it is currently dedicated to actual training, so formalized training with instructors, and there are perimeter fences and all that kind of thing, but there is space there. What about inviting schools from across the country to have a play day? Cordon off an area, dedicate an instructor or two, and get 20 or 30 young kids of a certain age. Go have a play. The instructor will be there. He'll have his kill switch, as Jim's already suggested, safe as you can possibly be. And you might just send one of those boys or one of those girls away thinking, construction, yeah, I fancy a bit of that. That driving a machine like that, that's a bit of me. That Nick Norton. Piling rigs do topple over due to lack of training or working on a weak platform, but their perceived instability is minuscule compared to the 360s, dumpers, dump trucks and forklifts toppling over on a daily basis, unreported. there's a whole subject there, and the unreporting is one that is a particular bugbear of mine. There is an expression, I can never remember which way round it goes. You cannot manage what you cannot measure. I think it's something like that. How can we possibly hope to address safety issues on specific machines? And let's take dumpers as an example. We know as industry veterans, that which we all are, we know that dumpers have a nasty habit of falling over. We know that telescopic handlers have a nasty habit of falling over. But all the while, those toppling overs, if that's a word, all the while that those incidents are not being reported, we have no proper understanding of just how widespread the issue is, and therefore we have no real means with which to go back to the manufacturers to insist that they sort things out. And furthermore, and this is where we should be borrowing from the International Powered Access Federation, IPAF, International Powered Access Federation, has a global database in which they record all accidents involving access platforms, scissor lifts, cherry pickers, the whole kit and caboodle. And it's not just a case of we've collated this, we've had a lot of accidents, people have been crushed or fallen out or whatever it might be. All of that data is used to inform their training. They actually build training based upon the findings of those incidents and accident reports. We should be doing the same. If it turns out that dumpers, bear with me, dumpers are inherently unstable, the manufacturers need to get their shit together. If, however, dumpers are fundamentally safe to operate, if they are operated correctly, then the industry needs to get its shit together. But until we are properly measuring that which is taking place on site, who's to blame? Who is going to take the fall for that? Who is going to have to up their game and get their shit together? There you are. People, that is an hour and 9 minutes. I don't know if I should be apologising to you or whether you should be apologising for me, but either way, I'm going to call it a day. I'm recording a podcast at 1 o'clock this afternoon, and I'm very poorly underprepared for it at the moment, so I'm going to go and do that. We'll be back here tomorrow, as I say. We've got a nice new implosion video from the fine folks over at CDI in the States, and we've also got what I guess is a bit of an exclusive to look at the electric compactor from Volvo. You could go on all day. Yes, I could. Steve, I am waiting. I'll be absolutely honest with you. I am waiting to talk. I'm waiting to be approached, basically, either by somebody that's willing to pay me to do it, which would probably be my preference, or to actually come up with some sort of sponsorship concept for a charity, be it the Lighthouse Club or something else. And my plan basically is to attempt a marathon live stream. Current record is just over 2 hours. That's my current record, isn't it? I mean, there are people that have done them for days out in the wilds of the internet. My current record is just over 2 hours. I'd love to do 5. I mean, I'd love to do 10, and I'd probably do it in relays. Peter Haddock, I'm looking at you while I'm saying this. I'd probably do it in relay, so an hour on and an hour off. We'll just keep the same stream going and going and going. Different subjects, different guests, different discussions. One of these days we will get around to doing that. And one final thing before I love you and leave you, I have one more piece of my live streaming on the road armory, which is scheduled to be delivered today. It's only a minor thing, but it's kind of integral to what I'm planning. But I'm already speaking to a company that has, in principle at least, agreed to host me for a day. So we are currently planning, and I'm hoping it's going to take place in February. We are currently planning our first remote breakfast show live from somewhere. I'll tell you more when we've got it confirmed. Mick Norton says the anomalies of 360s overturning when earth moving, and there's no need to report under RIDDOR, but if lifting is a crane, it's reportable under Lola regs. This industry is built, I say, upon double standards. Yes, I think that's a fine note upon which to end. People, go and have a fantastic day. Please try and stay safe. Please try and stay warm. It is chilly out there at the moment. Look after yourselves. I'll be back here tomorrow, as I say. Blast from CDI, new roller from Volvo, and a whole lot more besides. Till then, have a good one and take it easy.